The millionaire helped the pregnant maid financially without knowing that the baby was his. The positive pregnancy test trembled in Scarlett Turner's hands as she sat on the edge of the luxurious bathtub in the master bedroom of the Carter mansion. As the housekeeper for 3 years, she knew every corner of that room, but she never imagined that she would be there at that particular moment discovering that she was carrying the child of the man she worked for. The night 2 months ago was still vivid in her memory. The charity dinner where Owen Carter, CEO of Carter Technologies, had drunk way too much after receiving the news of his mother's death. Scarlett had helped him up the stairs as she had done many times before when he came home late from work exhausted. But that night was different. His vulnerability, the silent tears, the touch that began as comfort and ended in something deeper, more intimate. "Miss Turner," Owen's voice on the other side of the door made her jump. "Is everything all right? I heard noises." Scarlett quickly put the test away in her bag. "Yes, Mr. Carter. Just organizing the cleaning products." In elegant Beverly Hills, the Carter mansion was known for its charity parties and corporate meetings. Owen Carter at 35 was the typical successful Los Angeles businessman, smart, charming, and to the dismay of the local socialites, a confirmed bachelor after a traumatic divorce 5 years earlier. "Scarlett, I need your help with tonight's event." Owen continued through the door. "The foundation is waiting for confirmation of the menu." "Of course, sir. I'll be in the office in 5 minutes." Scarlett looked at her reflection in the mirror. At 28, her simple professional appearance hid her inner turmoil well. Brown hair, always tied back in a discreet bun, clothes suitable for work, nothing to draw attention to the fact that she was more than just the efficient housekeeper. In the office, Owen was on the phone gesturing as he discussed the last details of the charity event for children with cancer. Scarlett watched him discreetly, the tailored navy blue suit, the black hair, slightly graying at the temples, the posture that emanated natural authority. Scarlett," he hung up the phone. "I need your opinion on something." Owen ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she knew indicated concern. "I'm thinking of turning the event into a monthly series, not just an annual one." "What do you think?" "That would be wonderful, sir. The children at the hospital always comment on how special these days are for them." Owen smiled, that smile that made his blue eyes sparkle. "You always know what to say, don't you? That's why I trust you so much." Guilt squeezed Scarlett's chest. How could she go on working there carrying such a secret? "Mr. Carter, she began, but was interrupted by the entrance of Madison Brooks, the company's public relations officer, a stunning blonde who made no effort to hide her interest in Owen. "Owen, darling, the journalists have already started arriving to cover the event." Scarlett backed away, discreetly returning to her tasks, as she watched Madison casually touch Owen's arm. It was better that way, she thought. Owen Carter belonged to another world, a world of magazine covers, millionaire mergers, and sophisticated women like Madison. For the rest of the day, Scarlett oversaw the preparations for the event, checking every detail with the precision that had made her indispensable to Owen. The children from the hospital began to arrive, filling the mansion with laughter and anticipation. It was his favorite part of the job, seeing how Owen completely transformed as he interacted with them, abandoning his serious businessman posture. "Scarlett," his voice surprised her again. "You look pale. Are you sure you're all right?" The genuine concern in his voice almost made her confess everything right then and there. Instead, she forced a smile. "Just a little tired, sir. Nothing to worry about." "You work too hard," he frowned. "Why don't you take a few days off next week? That won't be necessary." A wave of nausea interrupted her, forcing her to lean against the nearest wall. Owen took her by the arm, the touch sending that familiar electric current through her skin. "That's not a request, Scarlett. You need to rest." His tone brooked no argument. "Actually, I want you to see my private doctor. I'll make an appointment for tomorrow." Panic seized her. A doctor would discover a pregnancy, and then, "Really, Mr. Carter, there's no need to worry. It's probably just a passing virus." Owen studied her for a moment, his piercing blue eyes as if they could read her soul. "You're more than an employee, Scarlett. You're practically family. Let me take care of you." Family? The word echoed in her mind as she watched Owen turn his attention to the children. If only he'd known that in a few months there would be a real member of his family on the way. Night fell over Beverly Hills, and the Carter mansion glowed with the lights of the charity event. Scarlett watched from afar as Owen spoke about the importance of supporting children with cancer, his magnetic presence capturing everyone's attention. Madison was by her side, smiling and applauding at just the right moments, seeming to belong perfectly in that world. Unconsciously, Scarlett put her hand to her belly. Soon she would no longer be able to hide her condition. She needed to make a decision, and fast. But how could she tell the truth without destroying everything Owen had built? How to admit that that single night of shared vulnerability had changed their lives forever? Owen's gaze met hers across the crowded hall, and he smiled, that warm, genuine smile he reserved for few. Scarlett felt tears forming. For now her secret was safe within the walls of the Carter mansion. But for how long? A week after the charity event, Scarlett found herself in the doctor's office that Owen had insisted on booking, her fingers drumming nervously on the arm of the chair. Dr. Harrison, a gray-haired gentleman with kind eyes, analyzed her tests with a neutral expression that only increased her anxiety. "Congratulations, Ms. Turner. You are approximately 9 weeks pregnant." Even though she already knew this, hearing the official confirmation made her stomach knot up. "Dr. Harrison, please, this needs to remain confidential." The doctor removed his glasses, studying her with understanding. "I've been the Carter family doctor for 20 years, Miss Turner. Discretion is my last name." Leaving the office, Scarlett checked her messages. Owen had sent 3 asking about the appointment. His genuine concern only made everything more difficult. "How is the doctor?" the most recent message read. "I need to know if everything is okay." Scarlett took a deep breath before replying, "It was just anemia, sir. Nothing serious." The reply came instantly, "Come to my office as soon as you can. We need to talk." At Carter Technologies, the glass and steel empire that Owen ran in downtown Los Angeles, Scarlett felt out of place in her simple dress. Employees in suits hurried past, some casting curious glances at the housekeeper, who rarely appeared there. Scarlett, Madison Brooks intersected her on her way to the elevator. "What a surprise to see you here. Owen is in an important meeting with investors. He asked me to come," Scarlett replied, trying to keep her composure. "Of course he did," Madison smiled, but her eyes remained cold. "You know, I've noticed how protective he's been of you lately." Before Scarlett could reply, the door to Owen's office opened. Executives in expensive suits came out, and Owen appeared, his serious expression softening at the sight of her. "Scarlett, come in." "Madison, can we reschedule our marketing meeting for tomorrow?" Madison hid her irritation, but Scarlett caught the glint of resentment in her eyes before she left. Owen's office occupied the entire top floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Los Angeles. He gestured for her to sit on the leather sofa instead of the formal chair in front of his desk. "Anemia?" he questioned, taking a seat next to her. "Scarlett, I've been working with negotiations long enough to recognize when someone isn't being completely honest." Her heart raced. "Mr. Carter," Owen, he corrected softly. "After 3 years, I think we can dispense with formalities, especially when we're alone." His closeness, his familiar scent, everything took her back to that night. "Owen, I need to tell you something." He leaned in slightly, his blue eyes fixed on her with that characteristic intensity. "I'm listening." "I'm pregnant." The silence that followed seemed to last an eternity. Owen processed the information, his expression going through several stages: surprise, concern, and then something Scarlett couldn't decipher. "That explains a lot," he finally said, running a hand through his hair. "Why didn't you tell me before? It's complicated." "Dad." Owen hesitated, as if the words were difficult. "Is he in your life?" Scarlett felt the tears threaten to fall. "Not exactly." "Then he's an idiot," Owen declared firmly. "Scarlett, I want you to know that you have my full support. I'll increase your salary, provide you with the best health insurance, and when the baby is born we can adapt one of the rooms in the mansion." "Owen, I can't accept that." "Why not?" He looked genuinely confused. "You've been part of my life for 3 years. You've helped me not just with the house, but with everything. You were the one who supported me when I lost my mother." The mention of that night made Scarlett stand up abruptly. "I need to get back to work." Owen held her gently by the wrist. "Is there something else you're not telling me?" For a moment, Scarlett almost confessed everything. But then she saw the pictures on the wall, Owen with politicians, businessmen, celebrities. A world so far removed from her own. "No, sir. I just don't feel comfortable accepting so much." Then take it as an investment in your child's future, he insisted. Every child deserves the best possible start in life. The irony of the situation almost made her laugh. Or cry. Her son would have the best possible start. He was a Carter after all, even if his father didn't know it yet. I'll think about it, she promised. What about Scarlett? Owen called out as she stood in the doorway. Whatever you decide, know that you're not alone. In the elevator, Scarlett finally allowed the tears to fall. Owen's generosity is genuine. Concern only made everything more difficult. How would he react to finding out that the idiot who had got his housekeeper pregnant was himself? Madison was waiting in the lobby, her shrewd eyes immediately noticing Scarlett's tears. Trouble in paradise. Excuse me, Scarlett muttered, trying to get through. You know, Owen can be very generous when he wants to be, Madison commented casually. But he can also be ruthless when he feels betrayed. Just something to keep in mind. The veiled threat hung in the air as Scarlett left the building. The Los Angeles sun seemed particularly merciless that afternoon, reflecting off the hundreds of windows of the surrounding skyscrapers, each one like a judgmental eye watching her steps. In her modest apartment in Silver Lake, very different from the mansion where she spent her days, Scarlett placed her hand on her still flat belly. What are we going to do, little one? She whispered to her baby. How am I going to tell your father who you really are? The phone vibrated with another message from Owen. I thought of some great schools in the neighborhood. Can we discuss over dinner tomorrow? Scarlett closed her eyes, feeling the weight of every decision not made, every truth not told. Time was passing, and soon there would be no hiding the truth. The question was, when that truth came out, what would survive of the life? She knew the Carter Technologies board meeting was particularly tense that morning. Owen could barely concentrate on the financial projections displayed on the screen, his mind constantly going back to Scarlett in her pregnancy. Something about the way she had reacted in his office the day before disturbed him deeply. Mr. Carter, the voice of one of the directors, brought him back to reality. About the merger with Rivera Industries. We'll postpone that discussion, Owen interrupted, surprising everyone. I have other urgent matters to attend to. As the executives left the meeting room, Madison Brooks stayed behind. Owen, is everything all right? You seemed distant since yesterday. I'm fine, Madison. Just worried about a personal situation. Your housekeeper, Madison arched a perfectly shaped eyebrow. I hear she's pregnant. Owen stiffened. Miss Turner's personal issues are not a matter for corporate speculation. At the mansion, Scarlett was organizing the master closet when she found an old photo of Owen with his ex-wife Rachel. The divorce had been a scandal on Los Angeles social pages 5 years earlier when Rachel cheated on him with his best friend. Since then, Owen had kept everyone at an emotional distance. Except that night, Scarlett muttered to herself, unconsciously touching her belly. Talking to yourself? Owen's voice made her jump, dropping the photo. Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. I thought you'd be in the office all day. I canceled some appointments. He bent down to pick up the photo, his gaze lingering on the image before he put it away in a drawer. We need to talk about your medical arrangements. Owen, I told you I don't need to. Please, he interrupted her gently. Let me help. Not as your boss, but as a friend. The word friend fell heavily between them, laden with unspoken meanings. Scarlett watched Owen approach, her heart racing, as it always did when he was around. I've made an appointment with Dr. Lauren Bennett, one of the best obstetricians in Beverly Hills, he continued. For tomorrow. You can't just make decisions about my pregnancy, Scarlett protested more firmly than she had intended. Your pregnancy, a sharp voice interrupted the moment. Madison was standing in the closet doorway, her eyes wide with discovery. Well, that explains a lot. Madison, what are you doing here? Owen asked, his voice taking on a professional tone. I came to bring the merger documents you left in the meeting room, she replied, her eyes never leaving Scarlett. But apparently I interrupted something much more interesting. The air was thick with unresolved tension. Scarlett could feel Madison's calculating gaze, as if she were putting together a puzzle in her mind. Miss Brooks, Scarlett began, but Madison cut her off with a gesture. Please continue with your business. Owen, can we talk in private? After they left, Scarlett allowed herself a moment of panic. Madison Brooks was not known for her discretion, and the look she threw her way suggested that she was beginning to connect the dots. In the office, Owen was facing a veiled interrogation from Madison. It's none of your business, he replied when she implied something about his relationship with Scarlett. As her public relations officer, anything that might affect your image is my business, Madison retorted. A pregnant housekeeper living under your roof, people will talk. Let them talk. Oh, and Madison softened her voice, touching his arm. I'm just trying to protect you. After what happened with Rachel. Don't mention Rachel. He pulled away abruptly. And Scarlett had nothing to do with it. That evening after Madison had left, Owen found Scarlett in the back garden, sitting by the pool. The sun was setting over Beverly Hills, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. I'm sorry about Madison, he said, taking a seat next to her. She can be intense. She's just doing her job, Scarlett replied, although her stomach churned at the memory of the PR woman's gaze. No, she's pushing the boundaries. Owen sighed. Scarlett, I know there's something else bothering you besides the pregnancy itself. You can trust me. The moment seemed perfect for the truth. The setting sun, the silence of the garden, the sincerity in Owen's eyes. But then Scarlett remembered Rachel, the betrayal, how Owen had shut down emotionally after that. Just the normal worries of a single mother tobe. She lied, hating herself for it. Owen studied her for a moment, as if he could see through her words. Do you know what I admire most about you, Scarlett? Your strength. From day one, you've never needed anyone to fight your battles. Some battles are too hard to fight alone, she whispered. That's why you're not alone anymore. He replied, his hand finding hers on the marble bench. The touch was electric, reminiscent of that night that changed everything. For a moment, Scarlett saw a glimmer of recognition in Owen's eyes, as if he too were reliving those memories. The moment was interrupted by the sound of his cell phone, yet another reminder of the real world that separated them. As Owen answered the call and walked away, Scarlett watched her reflection in the pool, distorted by the gentle ripples of the water. Just like the truth, she thought. Sometimes clear, sometimes distorted, but always there waiting to surface. The appointment with Dr. Lauren Bennett went exactly as Scarlett had feared. The luxurious office in Beverly Hills, with its elegant decor and panoramic view, only increased her sense of not belonging. Owen insisted on accompanying her, sitting next to her in the waiting room, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Miss Turner, the assistant called out. The doctor is ready to see you. Would you like me to come in with you? Owen offered his genuine concern, making Scarlett's heart squeeze. No, I'd rather go alone. Dr. Bennett was a woman in her 50s with a maternal air that contrasted with her impeccable Cedars-Sinai Clinic lab coat. So you're 12 weeks along, correct? Scarlett nodded, trying to control her nervousness as she lay down on the gurney for the ultrasound. Owen Carter is very protective of his employees, the doctor commented casually, applying the gel. He personally called me to make sure you receive the best care. The sound of the baby's heart filled the room, strong and rhythmic. Scarlett felt the tears flow as the image appeared on the screen, her baby, Owen's son, moving as if beckoning to her. Probable delivery date. Dr. Bennett consulted her gestational calculator, and Scarlett held her breath. January 15th. The day confirmed her suspicions the night after the charity dinner when Owen received the news about his mother. The doctor went on about vitamins and prenatal care, but Scarlett barely listened, her mind reliving that night. In the waiting room, Owen immediately stood up when he saw her. Everything okay? How is it? Perfect. She forced a smile, holding the ultrasound image against her chest. The baby's healthy. Owen hesitantly held out his hand. Can I see? The moment he held the first picture of his son, even though he didn't know it would forever be etched in Scarlett's memory. The way his blue eyes softened the genuine smile that appeared on his lips. It's amazing, he murmured. I can already see the little fingers. On the way back to the mansion, the silence in the Audi was comfortable, but charged with unresolved tension. Owen occasionally glanced in her direction, as if he wanted to say something, but held back. Madison has organized the charity lunch for tomorrow, he finally said. But I can cancel it if you're not feeling well. You don't have to change your schedule because of me. Scarlett, Owen sighed, stopping the car in front of the mansion. When are you going to accept that I care about you? The sincerity in his voice almost broke down her defenses. It almost made her confess everything right there on the imported leather seat of his luxury car. Mr. Carter? Owen, he corrected automatically. Oh, and she hesitated. There's something I need to tell you. His phone rang, interrupting the moment. It was Madison, of course. Something about a crisis with the press related to the merger with Rivera Industries. That night, Scarlett couldn't sleep. From her bedroom window in the mansion, she watched the lights of Los Angeles shining like earthly stars. Her phone vibrated with a message her younger sister Lucy, replying to the ultrasound she had sent earlier. "When are you going to tell him?" Lucy asked directly. "It's not that simple," Scarlett replied. "It's exactly as simple as you're making it." A noise in the hallway caught her attention. It was Owen, still in his suit, looking exhausted after hours of emergency meetings. "Still awake?" he asked softly. "I can't sleep," she admitted. "Me neither," he approached, leaning against the doorframe. "Do you want to talk?" There was something different in his gaze of vulnerability, reminiscent of that night. For a moment, Scarlett allowed herself to imagine what it would be like if he knew the truth, if he understood that the baby he was already showing so much affection for was his son. "Sometimes," Owen continued when she remained silent, "I think about that night. After the charity dinner when my mother—" Scarlett's heart stopped. Could it be that he remembered it too? "It was the first time I'd allowed someone to see me really vulnerable since Rachel," he admitted. You're unlike anyone I've ever met, Scarlett." "Oh, and I—" "No," he interrupted her gently. "You don't have to say anything. I just want you to know that no matter who the father of this child is, you have a place here. With me." Her words died in her throat. How could he be so close and so far from the truth at the same time? "Tomorrow." She promised more to herself than to him. "Tomorrow I'll tell you everything." Owen smiled that smile that made her eyes sparkle. "Get some rest. The baby needs it." After he left, Scarlett picked up the ultrasound photo, tracing the contours of the little being who had already changed her life completely. Tomorrow, she thought, tomorrow would change Owen's life too. What she didn't know was that Madison Brooks had her own plans for the charity launch the next day. While Scarlett contemplated her future, the PR woman rummaged through old files connecting dates and events, determined to discover what her intuition already suspected about the housekeeper's pregnancy. The charity launch at the Carter Mansion was in full swing when Madison Brooks made her triumphant entrance, carrying a folder of documents with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The garden had been transformed into an elegant event space with round tables decorated with white orchid arrangements and linen tablecloths. Scarlett was overseeing the last details of the buffet when she felt Madison's penetrating gaze on her. The PR woman approached the group of socialites near the bar, whispering something that made them all look in her direction with barely concealed expressions of surprise. Owen appeared at her side, adjusting the navy blue tie that perfectly matched his eyes. "I need you to sit with me during lunch." "Sir, I don't think it's appropriate." "It's more than appropriate," he insisted softly. "You helped organize this whole event. You deserve to be a part of it." The murmuring of the guests increased when Owen pulled out a chair for Scarlett at the head table. Madison, sitting across from him, could barely hide her irritation. "Before we begin," Madison stood up, glass of champagne in hand, "I'd like to make a special toast." Scarlett felt her stomach turn, and it wasn't just because of her pregnancy. There was something in Madison's tone that put her on alert. To Carter Technologies, which under Owen's leadership has shown itself to be not only a successful company, but an example of social responsibility. Madison paused dramatically. "And speaking of responsibility, how about we discuss some interesting dates?" Owen frowned. "Madison, this isn't the time." "The charity dinner in memory of your mother was exactly 12 weeks ago, wasn't it, Owen?" Madison continued, ignoring him. "The same night that you were devastated by the news and needed consolation." The blood left Scarlett's face. How could Madison have known? And curiously, Madison consulted some papers. "According to medical records I was able to access, a certain employee is exactly 12 weeks pregnant." The silence that fell over the garden was deafening. Owen looked from Madison to Scarlett, his expression slowly changing from confusion to understanding. "Scarlett," his voice was only a whisper, "I was going to tell you today," she managed to say, tears starting to form. After lunch, the guests began whispering among themselves, cell phones already in hand, ready to spread the latest Beverly Hills scandal. Owen stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the marble floor. "All of you, please excuse us." His authoritative voice left no room for discussion. "Lunch is canceled." Owen Madison tried to intervene. "What are you going to tell the press?" "Out," he ordered, his eyes never leaving Scarlett. "All of you." As the guests hurried away, Scarlett remained seated, her hands trembling on the linen napkin in her lap. The garden, once full of voices and music, was now silent except for the gentle gurgling of the fountain. "Why didn't you tell me?" Owen finally asked, his voice laden with restrained emotion. "How could I?" Scarlett stood up, needing to move to do something. "You barely remember that night. You were vulnerable, grieving the loss of your mother." "I did," he interrupted her. "I remembered everything. Your comfort, your touch, how you were the only person who really saw me at that moment." "Then why didn't you ever say anything?" "Because I thought you wanted to forget." Owen ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "You acted as if nothing had happened the next day. And after Rachel, I didn't want to risk losing someone else important in my life." Scarlett let the tears fall freely now. "I was afraid. Afraid of losing my job, afraid of being seen as just another opportunist trying to take advantage of the famous Owen Carter." "Is that what you think of me?" He moved closer, his intense eyes fixed on hers. "That I would see you like that?" "No," she admitted softly. "But after everything you've been through with your ex-wife, how could I risk hurting you even more?" Owen closed the distance between them, his hands gently holding Scarlett's face. "The only thing that's hurting me is knowing that you've carried this weight alone for so long." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "No," he leaned his forehead against hers. "I'm sorry I didn't create an environment where you felt safe to tell me the truth." A soft kick from the baby made Scarlett put her hand to her belly. Owen covered her hand with his, and for the first time father and son consciously connected. "Our son," he murmured, amazed. "We have a lot to talk about, a lot to sort out. And Madison will be fired," Owen declared without hesitation. "What she did today was unforgivable. The press, let them talk," he smiled softly. "I'm not going to hide my feelings for you any longer, Scarlett. I'm not going to pretend anymore that night didn't mean everything to me." The afternoon sun bathed the garden in golden hues, as if blessing that moment of truth and reconciliation. But they both knew that this was only the beginning. There was much to be discussed, much to be resolved. The world outside, with its expectations and judgments, was waiting to test the strength of this newly revealed love. The scandal of the charity lunch at the Carter mansion spread through Beverly Hills with the speed of a Santa on a fire. The next morning, Owen stared at the sensational headlines on his iPad, while Scarlett made ginger tea to control her morning sickness. "Millionaire's Owen Graves governor, the new Beverly Hills scandal," screamed Dimsey. "Ignore that," Owen said, putting the tablet aside and approaching Scarlett in the kitchen. "I've already instructed our legal team to take the necessary action against Madison for breach of medical confidentiality." Scarlett nodded, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped her cup. The reality of the situation was beginning to set, and she was no longer just the pregnant housekeeper. She was the woman carrying the child of one of Los Angeles's most influential businessmen. "Oh," and she hesitated, "maybe it's best if I step away for a while, until things settle down." "Absolutely not," he replied, firmly holding her hands. "We spent enough time hiding. I'm not going to let you face this alone." Owen's phone rang. It was his sister Caroline Carter, the company's corporate lawyer. "I'll put it on speaker," he warned. "Owen, what a mess," Caroline sighed. "I've just left an emergency meeting with the board. They're worried about the impact on the company's image." "The company's image?" Owen laughed humorlessly. "My ex-public relations exposed an employee's confidential medical information during a charity event, and they're worried about the company's image. You know what these dinosaurs on the board are like," Caroline replied. "But don't worry, I'm already preparing a lawsuit against Madison that will make her regret every word of that little show." After the call, Owen noticed that Scarlett was unusually quiet. "What are you thinking about? How this will affect our son?" she admitted. "Children can be cruel when they find out that their parents are the subject of gossip." Owen pulled her close, his hands gently resting on the small curve of her belly. "Our son will grow up knowing that he was born of love, not scandal. And I'll make sure no one ever makes him think otherwise." The sound of the doorbell interrupted the moment. It was Rachel, Owen's ex-wife, her expression a mixture of amusement and incredulity. "So it's true," she said, entering uninvited. "The great Owen Carter has finally let his guard down." "Rachel," Owen's voice had a warning tone. "This is not a good time." "On the contrary, darling." Rachel smiled, her eyes fixed on Scarlett. "It's the perfect time to give the new mom some advice on what it's like to be part of the Carter family." Scarlett straightened up, meeting Rachel's gaze with a calm that surprised even herself. "I appreciate your concern, Mrs. Wilson, but I'd rather find that out for myself." Rachel arched a perfectly drawn eyebrow. Why, she has a backbone. Interesting. Turning to Owen, she continued, I've come to warn you that Philip is planning to use this against you at the next council meeting. Philip was the best friend with whom Rachel had betrayed Owen, now a member of the Carter Technologies board. Philip should worry about his own skeletons in the closet, Owen replied coldly. After Rachel left, Scarlett found Owen in his office, organizing documents. I don't want to be the reason for your downfall, Owen. He stopped what he was doing, turning to face her. You're the reason for my redemption, Scarlett. After Rachel, I'd built walls so high that I didn't even realize I was imprisoning myself. He touched her face gently. You set me free. Scarlett's phone vibrated with a message from her sister Lucy. Just saw the news. I'm catching the next flight from Portland. Is her sister coming? Owen asked, noticing her expression. Yes, she's always been very protective. Good, he smiled. Because I intend to officially ask for your hand in marriage, and it would be nice to have the family's blessing. Scarlett froze. Owen, you don't have to do this just because I'm pregnant. I'm not doing this because I'm pregnant. He knelt down in front of her, taking a small velvet box out of his pocket. I'm doing this because I love you. Because that night wasn't just about comfort or vulnerability. It was about finding my soul, made at the most unlikely moment. Tears began to fall as he opened the box, revealing a delicate platinum ring with a single diamond. It's not the most extravagant ring in the jewelry store, he admitted, but when I saw it, I thought of you, elegant, genuine, without needing excess to shine. When she could barely speak. I bought it the morning after you told me about the pregnancy, he confessed. Even before I knew the baby was mine, I knew I wanted you in my life forever. In the garden, the orchids from the charity launch still perfumed the air, silent witnesses to how the truth, even when revealed in the most painful way, could pave the way for something beautiful and true. Yes, Scarlett whispered, allowing Owen to slide the ring onto her finger. 1,000 times yes. The future was still uncertain, with corporate and social challenges to face. But there, in that moment of promises and truths finally revealed, Scarlett and Owen knew that they would face everything together, no longer as boss and housekeeper, but as life partners, united by love and the small miracle that was growing between them. The news of the engagement between Owen Carter and his former housekeeper dominated the headlines in Los Angeles the following week. The platinum ring on Scarlett's finger shone like a beacon of hope amid the media storm brewing around them. Lucy Turner arrived at Los Angeles International Airport on a Monday morning, her determined expression reflecting years of protecting her younger sister. Owen insisted on picking her up personally, a decision that took Scarlett by surprise. So you're the billionaire who got my sister pregnant, Lucy declared as soon as she got into Owen's Aston Martin, completely ignoring the formalities. Lucy, Scarlett scolded from the passenger seat. I'm the man who loves your sister. Owen replied calmly, a small smile on his lips. The rest is consequence. Lucy studied Owen through the rearview mirror the whole way to Beverly Hills, her green eyes identical to Scarlett's, assessing his every reaction. And what happens when you get tired of playing happy family? Lucy, please, Scarlett began, but Owen gently interrupted her. It's a valid question, he said, parking the car in the driveway of the mansion. I spent 5 years building walls after Rachel betrayed me. Your sister didn't just break down those walls, she showed me that there was still a heart beating behind them. In the living room of the mansion, Caroline Carter was waiting with a pile of documents. The lawyer had the same piercing blue eyes as her brother, but her smile was warmer. We need to discuss the strategy for tomorrow's board meeting, she announced. Philip is mobilizing some conservative investors against you. What exactly is the charge? Lucy asked, her protective instinct extending to the professional situation. Misconduct, Caroline sighed. They claim that Owen took advantage of his position of power over a female employee. That's ridiculous, Scarlett protested. I would never. We know that, dear, Caroline reassured her. But we need to prepare ourselves for an ugly battle. Philip won't easily give up the control he thinks he can gain over the company. Owen remained silent for a moment, his fingers intertwined with Scarlett's. Maybe it's time to tell her story. The real story. Owen, no, Scarlett squeezed his hand. You don't have to expose her pain like that. My mother's death destroyed me, he continued, looking into her eyes. That night you weren't just an employee consoling me. You were the first person in years who saw me as just Owen, not the CEO of Carter Technologies. Lucy watched the interaction with growing interest, her defensive posture gradually softening. I'll arrange an exclusive interview, Caroline decided, with someone we can trust to tell the story sensitively. Sophia Martinez, Owen suggested. She's always been fair in her reporting on the company. As they discussed the details, Scarlett felt a familiar wave of nausea. Owen immediately noticed her pallor, interrupting the conversation to guide her to the sofa. This we also need to address, Caroline made a note. The public needs to see that it's not just a story of corporate scandal, it's a story of love and family. What if they don't believe it? Scarlett asked softly. Then let them not believe it, Owen declared. I'm no longer living to please shareholders or headlines. I'm living for our family. Lucy snorted, attracting everyone's attention. You know, I came here ready to hate you, Owen Carter. But maybe my sister has found one of the few good men left. The moment was interrupted by the sound of the doorbell. It was Sophia Martinez, on time for Caroline's hastily arranged interview. Mr. Carter, the journalist greeted professionally before turning to Scarlett with a gentle smile. Ms. Turner, thank you for trusting me to tell your story. The next 2 hours were an exercise in vulnerability. Owen talked about the loss of his mother, about how Scarlett had been his safe haven on that night of pain. Scarlett shared her fears and insecurities, her reasons for initially keeping the pregnancy a secret. What would you say to those who question the authenticity of your relationship? Sophia asked. Owen looked at Scarlett, his love evident in every word. I'd say that sometimes fate uses unexpected paths to take us exactly where we need to be. And to the company board, the journalist continued, I would say that Carter Technologies was built on family values, the values that my father established, and that I intend to honor. If some board members can't see beyond their own ambitions, perhaps it's time for a change in leadership. After the interview, as the sun set over Beverly Hills, the impromptu family gathered in the garden. Lucy had finally let down her defenses, recounting embarrassing stories from Scarlett's childhood. Caroline made occasional notes, preparing herself for the corporate battle to come. Tomorrow's going to be a hard day. Owen commented, his hand resting protectively on Scarlett's belly. But we won't be alone, she replied, watching her sister and future sister-in-law chatting animatedly. The baby chose that moment to kick particularly hard, as if to join in the conversation. Owen laughed, marveling at the moment. No, we won't be, he agreed, kissing Scarlett's temple softly. Never again. The meeting room on the top floor of Carter Technologies was packed the next morning. The 12-member board of directors occupied the long mahogany table as Owen Carter prepared to face what could be the most decisive day of his career. Scarlett watched the proceedings on the mansion's television alongside Lucy and Caroline. The interview with Sophia Martinez had been published that morning, and the reactions on social media were surprisingly positive. The love story born out of pain and loss had touched the public in a way that no one had expected. The shareholders are divided, Caroline reported, checking her tablet. Sophia's story is making some rethink their positions. But Philip still has enough clout to cause trouble, Lucy observed, her experience as a political consultant in Portland sharpening her instinct for power plays. In the meeting room, Philip Morrison stood up, his impeccable Italian suit contrasting with his sour expression. Gentlemen of the board, we are here to discuss the serious issue of conduct that jeopardizes not only Carter Technologies' reputation, but its very future. Owen remained calm, his eyes scanning the familiar faces around the table. Some avoided his gaze, others showed silent support. Albert Chun, his mentor in the early years of his career, nodded discreetly. Mr. Morrison, Owen finally spoke, his voice firm and controlled. Before we continue with your accusations, I'd like to present some facts to the board. With a gesture, he activated the digital screen on the wall. Graphs and figures filled the display, showing the company's exponential growth over the last 5 years under his leadership. Since I took over as chairman, our shares have tripled in value. Our green technology division has expanded to 3 continents, and our social responsibility programs serve more than 50,000 families. Impressive figures, Philip interrupted with a condescending smile, but they don't erase the fact that you got involved with a subordinate employee. Interesting you mentioned professional ethics, Philip. Owen replied, keeping his tone casual as he inserted a USB stick into the system. Especially considering your own indiscretions. On the screen, documents began to appear, emails, bank transfers, records of secret meetings. Philip paled visibly. "What's that?" one of the advisors asked, adjusting his glasses to read better. "Evidence that Mr. Morrison has been diverting funds from the research division to an account in the Cayman Islands," Owen explained. Caroline has spent the last few months gathering this information. Back at the mansion, Caroline allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. "Never trust a man who betrays his best friend," she commented. "There will always be more secrets." Philip stood up abruptly, his chair tipping backwards. "That's a pathetic attempt to divert attention from the real problem." "The real problem, Philip," Owen moved closer to him, "is that you've never gotten over the fact that Rachel chose you out of interest, not love. And now you can't bear to see that I've found someone who loves me for who I am, not for what I have." The room fell into a tense silence. Albert Chin snorted, drawing everyone's attention. "I propose a vote. Who supports Owen Carter staying on as CEO and chairman of the board?" Hands began to rise one after the other. Philip watched helplessly as his plan fell apart. 10 votes in favor, 2 against, Albert announced. "The motion to remove Owen Carter is denied." In the mansion, Scarlett let out the breath she hadn't even realized she was holding. Lucy hugged her tightly while Caroline was already typing furiously on her cell phone, probably triggering the legal team for the next steps. Owen returned home in the late afternoon, exhausted but victorious. He found Scarlett in the garden, sitting in her favorite spot by the fountain. "How are you?" she asked softly, noticing the lines of tiredness on his face. "Better now," he replied, sitting down next to her and placing his hand on her stomach. "Philip has resigned from the council. The federal police have already been notified about the fraud. I'm sorry you had to go through that because of me." "Because of us," he corrected gently. "And it was worth every second. I finally freed myself, not only from Philip, but from the whole past with Rachel." Lucy appeared at the garden door. "I hate to interrupt, but Dr. Bennett is on the phone. Something about the results of the latest tests." Scarlett's heart raced, but Owen squeezed her hand reassuringly. Together they went to the office to take the call on speakerphone. "I have great news," the doctor's voice sounded excited. "All the tests are perfect, and if you want to know, it's a girl." Tears came instantly to Scarlett's eyes. Owen hugged her from behind, his own excitement evident in a way her body trembled slightly. "A girl," he whispered, amazed. "Our little warrior." "Have you thought of names?" Lucy asked, also thrilled. Owen and Scarlett exchanged a meaningful look. "Grace," they said in unison. "Like your mother," Scarlett explained to Lucy. "Grace Carter." Owen tested the name, his smile lighting up the whole room. "Perfect." Night fell over Beverly Hills, finding the family gathered on the balcony. Caroline had brought non-alcoholic champagne to celebrate not only the council victory, but also the discovery of the baby's gender. The air was full of possibilities and promises of a future that, although still uncertain in some respects, would be faced together. The news that Grace Carter was on the way brought a new dynamic to the Beverly Hills mansion. Owen dedicated himself to transforming one of the master bedrooms into a space worthy of his princess, consulting decorators and completely ignoring the budget, much to Scarlett's amusement. "Oh, and she doesn't need a Swarovski chandelier," Scarlett protested, watching the workmen install the delicate piece on the baby's bedroom ceiling. "She won't even be able to appreciate it for the first few years." "But I will," he replied with a mischievous grin, hugging her from behind. "And so will you when you're breastfeeding our daughter at 3 in the morning." The press still followed them occasionally, but their love story had won over the public after the interview with Sophia Martinez. Magazines now portrayed them as a modern fairy tale, especially after photos of the couple choosing furniture for the nursery leaked online. Caroline had turned the situation into a marketing opportunity for the company, launching a new range of technology for pregnant women and babies under the Carter's brand. "We're expanding into a billion-dollar market," she explained during a family dinner. "And who better to be the face of the campaign than our own family?" Lucy, who decided to extend her stay in Los Angeles, worked closely with Caroline on the communication strategy. "The public loves a story of redemption," she commented, showing the social media metrics. "And you two are the perfect example of how love can overcome social barriers." But it wasn't all flowers. Madison Brooks, still bitter about her dismissal, began giving interviews suggesting that Scarlett had planned everything from the start. "She knew exactly what she was doing," Madison declared on a popular podcast. "She took advantage of Owen's vulnerability after his mother's death to secure her place in the Carter family." The accusation hit Scarlett deeply. That night, Owen found her crying in the garden, her place of refuge in the mansion. "Don't listen to her," he said softly, taking a seat next to her. "Madison is just projecting her own insecurities." "What if people believe her?" Scarlett whispered, her hands resting protectively on her stomach. "What if Grace grows up hearing that her mother is an opportunist?" Owen held her face between his hands, his intense blue eyes fixed on hers. "Our daughter will grow up knowing that she was born of the purest love that ever existed, that her mother is the strongest, most upstanding woman I've ever met, and that she changed her father's life in ways he didn't even know were possible." The doorbell interrupted the moment. It was Albert Chin, Owen's board member and mentor, paying an unexpected visit. "Sorry to drop by unannounced," he smiled gently, "but I thought you might like to see this in person." Albert handed Owen an envelope. Inside was a letter of resignation from Madison Brooks to all the companies in the Carter Group. "It seems that her interviews have done more damage to herself than to you," Albert explained. 3 major clients have canceled contracts with her new PR agency in the last 24 hours. Scarlett felt a weight leave her shoulders. Owen squeezed her hand affectionately. "Karma is really interesting," Lucy commented, joining them in the garden. "Speaking of which, I've received an offer to move my consulting office to Los Angeles." "Are you staying?" Scarlett asked hopefully. "As if I could miss my niece growing up," Lucy smiled. "Besides, Caroline has offered me an interesting partnership in the company's communications division." The following days brought a peace that Scarlett hadn't felt since discovering her pregnancy. Mornings were filled with meetings of the charity committee she now chaired. Owen had insisted that she take a more active role in founding the company. Afternoons were dedicated to preparing for Grace's arrival. Owen made a point of attending every doctor's appointment, his expression marveling every time he heard his daughter's heart beating strongly on the ultrasound. "She already has her personality," Dr. Bennett commented during a checkup. "She always moves more when she hears her father's voice." At home, Owen developed the habit of reading stories to Scarlett's tummy every night. His favorites were fairy tales, especially those where true love triumphed over all obstacles. "Our story is better than any fairy tale," he said one night after finishing reading Beauty and the Beast. "Because it's real. Because we choose each other every day, even when it would be easier to give up." Scarlett watched the man next to her, the powerful CEO the world knew, but also the loving father and devoted husband that only she saw. "You've changed so much since that first night." "You've changed me," he corrected softly. "You showed me that being vulnerable isn't a weakness, it's a strength." Grace chose that moment to kick him particularly hard, making them both laugh. "See," Owen smiled, kissing Scarlett's belly. "Even our daughter agrees with me." The entrance to the wedding dress store on Rodeo Drive was decorated with white orchids, the same flowers that had adorned the garden of the Carter mansion the day the truth came out. Scarlett, now 6 months pregnant, watched her reflection in the triple mirror, while Caroline and Lucy adjusted the dress, specially designed to accommodate her growing belly. "Owen's going to have a heart attack when he sees you," Lucy smiled, adjusting the French lace veil. "In a good way, of course." The wedding had been Caroline's idea. "Why wait?" she argued. "You're already a family. Let's just make it official before Grace arrives." The media speculated on every detail of the ceremony, which would take place in the garden of the Carter mansion in 2 weeks' time. Bets on the dress, the cake, and the guest list swirled on social media, but Owen and Scarlett had decided to keep everything intimate and meaningful. Miss Turner, the seamstress, interrupted their thoughts. "We need to adjust the waist a little more. Grace seems to have grown since the last fitting." "She grows by the minute," Scarlett laughed, feeling a familiar kick, especially when she hears her father's voice. As if conjured by her words, the phone rang with a message from Owen. "Meeting finished early. Can I come and pick you up?" "No way," Caroline intercepted the phone before Scarlett could answer. "You won't see the dress until the big day, little brother." As Caroline typed an appropriately stern reply to her brother, Scarlett noticed a familiar figure through the store window. Rachel was standing across the street watching. But unlike the other times when her words were laden with venom, her expression was different now, almost nostalgic. "She's out there," Scarlett commented softly. Lucy immediately assumed a defensive posture, but Caroline stopped her. "Leave it. I think I know what she wants." To everyone's surprise, Rachel crossed the street and entered the store. Her gaze roamed over Scarlett's dress, And for a moment they all waited for the acid comment that was sure to come. "You look beautiful," Rachel said, instead her voice surprisingly sincere. "The dress, it's perfect." A stunned silence filled the room. It was Caroline who finally spoke. "What do you want, Rachel?" "I came to bring this." She took a small package out of her bag. It was from Grace, Owen's mother. "She gave it to me when we got married, saying that it should be passed on to the woman who truly loved her son." Scarlett accepted the package with trembling hands. Inside was a delicate sapphire and diamond brooch, clearly a family piece. "I never felt worthy of him." Rachel continued, her mask of perfection finally falling. "Because I never loved Owen the way you do. I was young, ambitious, and he represented everything I wanted in life. But you," she smiled sadly, "you love him for the man he is, not for the empire he represents." "Rachel," Scarlett began, but the other woman was already heading for the door. "Just take care of him, okay? And tell Grace that her grandmother would have loved her name." After Rachel left, Caroline examined the brooch with tearful eyes. "Mom always said it brought good luck and love." It had been worn by 3 generations of Carter women. "Now there will be 4, Lucy commented, helping to pin the piece on Scarlett's dress. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of final adjustments, indecisions about the veil. By the time Owen finally managed to kidnap his bride with Caroline's reluctant permission, the sun was setting over Los Angeles. "How was the exam?" he asked, entwining his fingers with hers as he drove home. Revealing, Scarlett replied, thinking of Rachel. "Owen, there's something I need to tell you." She recounted the unexpected encounter, watching his reactions carefully. When she mentioned the brooch, Owen was silent for several moments. "Mom always said she'd know when I found the right person," he finally said, his voice breaking. "That the brooch would find its true home." That night, lying in the king-size bed they now shared, Owen traced soft patterns on Scarlett's belly as he told Grace stories about his mother. "She would have loved you so much," he whispered, "not just to the baby, but to Scarlett too. Just like I love you both." "More than Carter Technologies," Scarlett teased, remembering an old argument. "More than any empire in the world," he replied without hesitation. "You are my true legacy." Grace responded with a vigorous kick, making them both laugh. The sapphire brooch glowed softly on the dressing table, a silent promise that some love stories are destined to break down all barriers, even those we think are insurmountable. Scarlett's wedding dress rested on a mannequin in the master bedroom of the Carter mansion, the sapphire brooch shimmering softly in the dawn light. The wedding was only a week away, and the house was buzzing with final preparations. Caroline coordinated a team of decorators who transformed the garden into a fairy tale setting, while Lucy oversaw every detail of the buffet with military precision. Owen found Scarlett in her office revising the latest documents for the charitable foundation she now presided over. Her 6-month belly perfectly framed the navy blue dress she was wearing, making him smile as he thought about how her life had completely changed in such a short space of time. "I have a surprise for you," he announced, holding out a golden envelope. Scarlett opened it curiously, her eyes widening as she read the contents. "The house on Martha's Vineyard. The house where I grew up," Owen confirmed. "I had it restored over the last few months. I thought we could spend our honeymoon there, and then maybe it would be a good place for Grace to spend her summers." The tears came easily, a common occurrence since pregnancy. "But you haven't been back there since Mom passed away," he added softly. "I think it's time to create new memories, to establish our own traditions." The moment was interrupted by Caroline, who entered carrying a familiar-looking old box. "I found this in the attic. I think you'll want to see it." Inside the box were family albums, letters yellowed by time, and at the bottom an envelope addressed to my son, Owen, to be opened when he finds true love. Owen took the envelope with trembling hands, immediately recognizing his mother's handwriting. Scarlett entwined her fingers with his, giving him the strength to open it. "Dear Owen," he began to read aloud, his voice breaking. "If you're reading this letter, it means you've finally found someone who has broken down the walls you've built around your heart. Someone who loves you not for the empire your father and I built, but for the wonderful man you are." Scarlett squeezed his hand gently as he continued. "The sapphire brooch that has been passed down through generations in our family isn't just a piece of jewelry, it's a symbol of true love. When your father met me, I was just a literature teacher in a small town in Massachusetts. The corporate world said we weren't compatible, but our love proved that titles and fortunes are insignificant when two hearts meet. Caroline discreetly wiped away a tear as Owen continued reading. My biggest regret is not being there to see you find your true life partner. But I know in my heart that when you do, it will be with someone who makes you want to be a better person. Someone who sees beyond the CEO of Carter Technologies and sees the little boy who used to read stories to the birds in the garden. Scarlett smiled through her tears, remembering how Owen used to read stories to Grace every night. The real legacy of the Carter family is not in the shares of the company or the buildings we built. It's in the love we share, the traditions we pass on, and the strength we find in each other. Take good care of that love, my son. And always remember, sometimes life's greatest treasures come in the most unexpected packages. With all my love, Mama. The silence that followed was charged with emotion. Grace chose that moment to kick particularly hard, as if to participate in the family moment. She knew, Owen whispered, stroking Scarlett's belly. Somehow Mom knew you'd come into our lives. Lucy appeared in the doorway, holding her tablet. Sorry to interrupt, but we need to decide on the flowers for. She stopped as she realized the emotional atmosphere in the room. Caroline quickly updated her on the letter, and soon all four of the most important women in Owen's life, his sister, his sister-in-law's fiancée, and his unborn daughter, were sharing that precious moment. You know what that means, don't you? Caroline smiled, picking up the oldest photo album. It's time to relive some Carter traditions. The next few hours were spent between laughter and tears as Caroline showed old photos, her parents dancing under the stars in Martha's Vineyard Christmas celebrations, with a house full of family simple moments that captured the essence of what it meant to be a Carter. This is what I want for our family, Owen declared, kissing Scarlett's temple. Not just business success, but those memories, those traditions. And we'll create our own, Scarlett promised, thinking about how Grace would grow up surrounded by so much love. The sun was beginning to set over Beverly Hills, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that recalled the first day Owen and Scarlett allowed themselves to see beyond the barriers of boss and employee. Now on the eve of their wedding, with a daughter on the way, and surrounded by a family that went far beyond blood ties, they understood that sometimes fate has much bigger plans than we can imagine. The week leading up to the wedding turned the Carter mansion into a whirlwind of activity. Scarlett watched from the balcony of the master bedroom as a team installed an elegant gazebo in the garden where she and Owen would exchange vows in a few days. Grace, restless in her womb, seemed to share in the general excitement. I thought I'd find you here, Owen said, approaching with 2 cups of chamomile tea. Caroline's looking for you for the last fitting of the dress. I just needed a moment, Scarlett replied, accepting the cup. Sometimes it still seems surreal, like I'm gonna wake up and find out it was all a dream. Owen placed his cup on the side table and hugged her from behind, his hands resting protectively on her protruding belly. If it's a dream, then we're dreaming together. The moment was interrupted by the sound of helicopters flying over the estate. The press had stepped up its coverage since the wedding date was leaked, making the union of the CEO of Carter Technologies and his former housekeeper the social event of the year in Beverly Hills. Maybe we should have taken Caroline's suggestion that we get married on Martha's Vineyard, Scarlett sighed, watching the photographers try to get angles through the estate's high walls. No, Owen replied firmly. We're not going to hide. This is our home, where our story began. This is where it must continue. Lucy hurried into the room, her tablet in hand. You need to see this. It was an interview with Philip Morrison for a financial news channel. The former board member, still bitter after his fall, was making insinuations about the legitimacy of Owen and Scarlett's relationship. It's convenient how everything lined up perfectly for Miss Turner, Philip grinned mischievously at the camera. The death of the Carter matriarch, Owen's emotional vulnerability, and now a baby on the way. Owen turned off the TV with more force than necessary. That's enough. Caroline, get the lawyers ready. We're suing Philip for defamation. No, Scarlett touched his arm gently. That's exactly what he wants, more attention, more drama. She's right, Lucy agreed. Besides, we have something much more important to concentrate on. She showed her tablet, where dozens of messages of support from Carter Technologies employees and beneficiaries of the foundation's social works were flooding the social networks. Look at this, Caroline pointed to one post in particular. It was from Rachel, surprisingly. I've known Owen Carter for years, and I've never seen him as truly happy as he is right now. Some people find love in the most unexpected places, and that doesn't make it any less true. Scarlett felt the tears start to form once again, blaming the pregnancy hormones. Owen hugged her tighter, kissing her temple. "See," he whispered, "even Rachel can see what's obvious to anyone who really knows us." The afternoon passed in a series of final preparations. Dr. Bennett made a house call for a routine checkup, ensuring that both Scarlett and Grace were in perfect condition for the ceremony. Stress is not ideal at this stage of pregnancy, the doctor warned, but Grace seems to be coping well with all the excitement. She's strong like her parents. As night fell over Beverly Hills, Owen found Scarlett in the baby's room, organizing the little outfits that had arrived earlier. The crystal mobile, a gift from Caroline, spun, gently projecting delicate patterns on the walls in soft shades of pink and gold. "I found something today," Owen said, taking a seat next to her on the small sofa. He took an old photograph out of his pocket. In it, a young Grace Carter held a baby Owen in her arms, her radiant smile identical to the one Scarlett saw every day on her fiancé. "She was beautiful," Scarlett commented softly. "Yes, she was. And, you know, it's funny, you have the same look she had, the one that says you'd do anything to protect the people you love." Grace kicked vigorously, making them both smile. "I think she agrees," Scarlett joked. "Our little approval committee." Owen laughed, his hand caressing his belly. "Scarlett, I know these last few weeks have been crazy with the press and Philip trying to tarnish our story, but I want you to know that none of that matters. What we have, you, me, and Grace, is more real than any headline or gossip." "I know," she replied, entwining her fingers with his. "And in 3 days the whole world will know too." At the bedroom door, Caroline hissed softly, "Sorry to interrupt, but the florists need a final decision on the orchids for the altar." White, Scarlett and Owen replied in unison, making Caroline roll her eyes with a smile. "You're already officially annoying," she joked. "I can't wait to see what you'll be like after I do." Later, lying in their king-size bed, Owen read Sleeping Beauty, to Grace's favorite story in recent weeks. Scarlett watched him, amazed at how the powerful CEO completely transformed himself during these intimate moments. "You know," she commented sleepily, "our story is much better than any fairy tale." "Why?" Owen asked, marking the page of the book. "Because it's real. Because we choose each other every day, even when it would be easier to give up." Owen pulled her closer, his familiar scent bringing a sense of peace that Scarlett had never known before him. "And we're going to keep choosing every day for the rest of our lives." The morning of the wedding dawned with a soft fall breeze caressing Beverly Hills. Scarlett woke up alone in her old suite at the Carter mansion. Caroline had insisted that she and Owen follow the tradition of not seeing each other in the 24 hours before the ceremony. Ready for the big day, Lucy entered carrying a breakfast tray, followed by a team of professionals who would transform the room into a mini beauty salon. Anxious, Scarlett admitted, stroking her belly. "Grace hasn't stopped moving all night. I think she feels the excitement." Her cell phone vibrated with a message from Owen. "I miss you already. See you at the altar. P.S. Grace, let your mother get some rest." Caroline arrived with her wedding dress carefully protected in its cape. The bespoke design highlighted Scarlett's pregnancy, rather than trying to hide it, a decision that had caused a stir on social media for defying traditional conventions. Security guards are positioned around the perimeter, Caroline reported as she supervised the makeup artist. "No paparazzi will spoil this day." On the other side of the mansion, Owen was adjusting his tie for the third time when Albertson knocked on the closet door. His mentor was carrying a small carved wooden box. "Your father wore these cufflinks on his wedding day," Albert explained, revealing a pair of sapphires that perfectly matched the brooch Scarlett would be wearing. "He would have been proud to see the man you've become. Even after all the scandal, especially after the scandal," Albert smiled. "You chose love over appearances, Owen. That's something your father always admired, even if he didn't always show it." The mansion's garden had been transformed into a modern fairy tale setting. White orchids intertwined with delicate lights decorated the gazebo where the couple would exchange their vows. Only 100 selected guests occupied the chairs arranged in a semicircle, a curious mix of Carter Technologies executives, foundation beneficiaries, and close family members. Rachel arrived discreetly, choosing a seat at the back. Her presence, although unexpected, symbolized the closing of the loop that both Owen and Scarlett appreciated. As the time for the ceremony approached, the tension in Scarlett's room was palpable. The dress with its elegant cut and French lace detailing seemed to have been made for her. The Carter family's sapphire brooch shone close to her heart, connecting past and present. Something blue, Lucy smiled, adjusting the brooch. And something old too. Something new is definitely Grace, Caroline joked, making everyone laugh when the baby responded with a vigorous kick. And something borrowed, a familiar voice added from the doorway. It was Dr. Bennett carrying a delicate pearl bracelet. My grandmother wore it on her wedding day. They say it brings luck to the first baby. Scarlett felt the tears threatening to ruin her makeup. You all? I never imagined having a family like this. Well, you'd better get used to it, Lucy declared, carefully touching up her sister's mascara, because the Carters and the Turners are one family now. In the garden, Owen waited under the gazebo, his heart beating harder with every passing minute. Albert stood beside him as best man, a reassuring presence that reminded him of his father. When the first notes of Can't Help Falling in Love began to play, performed by a string quartet, all the guests stood up. Lucy appeared first, followed by Caroline, both in navy blue dresses that complemented the decor. And then Scarlett appeared. The world seemed to stop for a moment. The late afternoon sun created a golden halo around her as she walked down the orchid aisle. Her dress flowed gracefully, her 6-month belly only accentuating her natural beauty. The sapphire brooch sparkled like a guiding star, connecting generations of Carter family love. Owen felt the tears escape without permission. There she was, no longer his housekeeper, no longer a secret kept between the walls of the mansion, but his life partner, the mother of his child, his true love. When their hands finally met under the gazebo, Grace gave a kick that they both felt, drawing excited smiles from the couple. I think someone is looking forward to taking part in the ceremony, Owen whispered, making Scarlett laugh softly through her tears. The celebrant began the ceremony, but for Owen and Scarlett the world had been reduced to that moment, that connection. The words of the vows flowed naturally, laden with promises that went far beyond the traditional, "till death do us part." You taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness, Owen declared, his voice breaking. That sometimes we need to lose everything to find what really matters. And you showed me that true love knows no social barriers, Scarlett replied. That family isn't just about blood, but about daily choices to stay and grow together. When the rings were exchanged, simple platinum bands with their initials and the date engraved inside, the sun began its farewell show, painting the Beverly Hills sky in shades of pink and gold. By the power vested in me, the celebrant smiled, I now pronounce you man and wife. The kiss that sealed their union was interrupted by a particularly hard kick from Grace, making all the guests laugh, as Owen bent down to talk to Scarlett's belly. Yes, princess, we love you too. Life had prepared them for this moment, through unexpected paths. From a night of shared vulnerability was born, not just a child, but a love story that defied convention and transformed two lonely lives into a family. And there, under the gazebo decorated with white orchids with the Beverly Hills sun as their witness, Owen and Scarlett Carter officially began their new chapter, no longer as boss and housekeeper, but as husband and wife, as parents, as souls who had finally found their place in each other. 3 months after the wedding, the Carter mansion came alive again with Grace's strong, healthy cry. Born on an early January morning, she came into the world with Owen's intense blue eyes and Scarlett's sweet smile, a perfect match for her parents. She's perfect, Owen whispered, holding his daughter for the first time in the master bedroom of the mansion, where Scarlett had opted for a home birth assisted by Dr. Bennett. Absolutely perfect. The media speculated for days about the birth, but the Carter family kept the moment private, sharing only one official photo: Grace, sleeping peacefully in her crib, the antique sapphire brooch carefully framed on the wall above her, symbolizing the continuity of a legacy of love. It seems like yesterday that I found out I was pregnant in this very room, Scarlett commented softly, watching Owen lull Grace to sleep during one of the countless dawns that followed. So much fear, so much uncertainty. And look where we are now, he smiled, taking a seat on the edge of the bed. You've turned this mansion into a real home, Scarlett. Not just for us, but for everyone who is part of our family. The family had indeed grown. Lucy finally settled permanently in Los Angeles, running the new media division of Carter Technologies. Caroline, ever the strategist, was already planning the expansion of the baby product line that had become a surprise success. Even Rachel found her place in this new dynamic, developing a mentoring program for young businesswomen through the Carter Foundation, a form of redemption that positively surprised everyone. "Mr. Carter," the voice of Emma, the new housekeeper, sounded through the intercom. "Mr. Chen has arrived for the meeting." Albert Chen, now chairman of the board of Carter Technologies, had become a constant presence at the mansion, naturally taking on the role of Grace's doting grandfather. His professional visits always ended with him telling stories about Owen's early years to the little girl. Did Grandpa Albert bring any more embarrassing stories about Daddy? Owen joked, walking down the stairs with Grace in his arms, Scarlett by his side. "Actually," Albert smiled, pulling an envelope out of his briefcase, "I brought something more important." The board unanimously approved the new extended parental leave policy for all company employees. Scarlett felt tears forming a proposal she had developed during her pregnancy, inspired by her own experience. "This will help so many families," she said with emotion, thinking of all the mothers and fathers who could now have precious time with their newborns without fear of losing their jobs. "It was your idea that inspired all this," Owen kissed her temple. "You always see beyond appearances, beyond social positions. You see people as they really are." Grace chose that moment to make one of her sleepy smiles, the ones that melted even the toughest executives during the meetings that occasionally took place at the mansion. "She has her smile," Albert commented to Scarlett, "the one that makes everyone feel special." The weeks turned into months, and the Carter family's routine found its own rhythm. Mornings were filled with board meetings for Owen, now held mostly by video conference so that he could be more present at home. Afternoons were dedicated to the foundation, where Scarlett revolutionized the way Carter Technologies approached social responsibility. Mommy Grace, now 6 months old, babbled her first word during a picnic in the garden near the fountain that had witnessed so many crucial moments in her history. She said, "Mommy first." Owen feigned indignation, making Scarlett laugh. "Daddy will be next, I'm sure," she consoled, watching her daughter play with the sapphire necklace Owen had made especially for her, a miniature version of the family's historic brooch. The Carter mansion, once a symbol of corporate power in Beverly Hills, had become a real home. The walls that once held secrets now echoed with baby giggles and family conversations. The garden, the scene of so many revelations, remained the family's favorite place for special moments. "Sometimes I still wonder," Scarlett confessed one night as they watched the stars from the balcony after putting Grace to bed, "if all this is real." Owen pulled her closer, his familiar scent bringing that sense of belonging she had learned to associate with home. "It's more real than any dream I've ever had," he replied. "You and Grace are my favorite reality." Their story, a housekeeper who carried a secret and a CEO who had to lose everything to find true love, had become something bigger than themselves. It became a reminder that true love knows no social barriers, that family is about daily choices, and that sometimes life's greatest treasures come in the most unexpected packages. Grace would grow up knowing that her existence was not just the result of one night of shared vulnerability, but the beginning of a love story that transformed lives, broke down walls, and proved that in the end what really matters is not the titles we carry or the positions we hold, but the ability to see beyond appearances and love unconditionally. And so, under the starry sky of Beverly Hills, Owen and Scarlett Carter continued to write their story, no longer as boss and housekeeper, but as husband and wife, as parents, as souls who found in each other the true meaning of home.